Welcome to Science, Health and Healing, Library of Children's Health Core. I'm Dr. Majid Ali. The subject of this article is a conversation with a suicidal 15-year-old. A conversation with a suicidal 15-year-old. I saw this teenager after she was discharged from the hospital. The hospitalization occurred when she tried to take her life. Fortunately, she survived. She was very sick. She stayed there for some weeks. Now, the purpose of her visit to me, I'm not a psychiatrist, but this little girl had stubbornly refused to take all her meds that were prescribed by the psychiatrist. She saw the psychiatrist post-hospitalization. None of them could persuade her to take any medications. The mother, as a last-ditch effort to asked me if I could intervene. And I really didn't know what I could. She was despondent, downcast. As I tried to engage in a conversation, I didn't get any place. Even the simplest question that I asked, her eyes stayed downcast. She never looked at me. She never even tried to answer my question. She never gave me an indication that she was even listening. So, having tried that for about 15-20 minutes, the mother was desperate, and I realized this is outside my area of effort. As sympathetic as I was, it was a heart-wrenching situation. The only other alternative was that she would be rehospitalized. When I brought that subject up of rehospitalization, several times she did not respond. So, as I thought this was the end of the road for us, I said, "I'm sorry, I tried my best. I could give you some vitamin injections. I don't think they would be enough. So I'm afraid that you will have to be committed to a hospital again." There was a little quiver in her neck. I thought there was a little quiver of hope for me. I said, "Would you let me show you a few pictures of a photomicrographs of blood?" And this time, there was a gentle movement. I picked up one of my books. There are pictures of circulating blood taken with a high-resolution phase contrast microscope. So I gently moved over to her. I opened the door. I opened the book at that page and put it in her lap, where her downcast eyes could not avoid it. She didn't protest. So I showed her the picture of a blood of a 3-year-old, healthy blood. Red blood cells were smooth, regular in outline, separated from each other. The fluid part of the blood plasma was very clear. And then 2 immune cells were also well preserved. I turned the page over and showed her a picture where some of these red cells that were deformed, the blood corpuscles, some of them were sticky, and there was a tiny area of congealing of the plasma. I said to her, just like you put a drop of lemon juice in milk and it turns sour, when a child has a viral infection, some of the acidity produced by the viral infection creates congealing, tiny microclot formation in the plasma. There was no movement of her eyes, her face, or her head. I gently turned the page and I showed her now a more advanced form of that same problem. The tiny areas of congealed plasma, they're sticky, so they had enlarged, and many of the red blood cells were sticking to each other and they were deformed. And so I explained what had happened, a more advanced stage. I turned the page and I showed her a picture of a more advanced stage of damage to blood corpuscles. Some of the blood cells were disintegrating now. And those clots, some of them were large enough and they were trapping the dead and the dying and the disintegrating cells within them. I turned the page and showed her a picture of a microclot where many of these damaged cells were trapped in a meshwork of a protein called fibrin. This is how the blood clots in everyone who has cancer or severe viral infections, or the person is smoking heavily, or a diabetic out of control. I thought that there was a little response. Encouraged, I moved on to the next page. Now there were large microclots, and some of them were being compressed into microplaques. Those are my terms that I introduced about 20 years ago based on my study of microscopy. And then I said to her, you know what is possible? If we could get blood going to your brain, which is clean, the blood cells are healthy, the plasma is clean, it's getting good oxygen, then I think there is a chance that your brain cells will work better. You will feel better. You won't be so tired. If, on the other hand, the blood going to your brain is like this, there are microclots and microplaques in the blood, and the blood cells are disintegrating and they're damaged. And the damaged cells irritate the lining of the blood vessels, so the tiny blood vessels in the brain go into spasms. Now that causes bitterness, anxiety, sad thoughts, depression. There's no desire to live. For the first time, she raised her eyes, made an eye contact, and then cast her eyes down. Mother was watching this. This was the golden opportunity I was looking for. I gently touched her shoulder and I said, let me show you a few more pictures. Let me show you the condition of the circulating blood, the blood cells and the fluid part called plasma, and how it determines the state of circulation to your heart, to your muscles, to your brain, and how healthy blood in the muscles will strengthen the muscles, in the heart will strengthen the heart, in the brain will strengthen the function of the heart. On the other hand, if your blood is all dried up, red blood cells are shriveled, they're tiny microclots, microplaques, you're dehydrated, dehydration creates acidity, then the brain cells will not get good blood. She, for the first time, looked at me and made an eye contact. I had to struggle to keep a professional face. So then I touched her both shoulders and I said, if you want, we will work with you. We will look at your blood. We will give you the treatment. We'll keep trying to improve the blood. But we need some time for this thing to happen. Would you consider taking the medication that your psychiatrist had given you? Because I think you need that. And then we will work. And when the time is right, we'll start reducing it. And I'm sure your psychiatrist will not have to give you the medication, and you will not have to go to the hospital. The next thing that I saw was the sobbing mother slid down from the chair onto the floor. And the daughter looked at her mother, and she raised her hand and gently put the hand at the shoulder of her mother. My purpose of giving you this short case study is to tell you that talk therapy for children does not work. What we need to do for these tormented souls is to systematically look at how we can improve the oxygen conditions in their brains so the brain cells can function, their neurotransmitter cells can function. There's a little hope, there's a little recovery, and in steps small and large, 2, 3, 4 years later, this child could be an altogether young adult. Now, I anticipate criticism. I anticipate some psychologists and psychiatrists saying, Dr. Ali, you're totally out of your depth. Yes, I am. I don't pretend to be a psychologist. I don't pretend to be a psychiatrist. What I was trying to do, and I'm certain about that, is that when we stay with the physical phenomenon, we have a far, far better way of helping these people, rather than keep throwing at them our convoluted theories. Your grandmother didn't do this, and that's why you want to end your life. Your mother didn't do this, and that's why you want to end your life. Your father didn't do this, and that's why you want to end your life. This is a biologist view of mental illness. I have posted a large number of articles on the official website of Children's Health Corps, www.kids123.org. I invite you to look at those materials. Children's Health Corps is a non-profit corporation which my wife and I funded and have funded entirely by our own funds. The way you can support us is forward this YouTube segment to your friends and families whose children are also suffering. Let's create a wave of environment. Please look at other companion programs, especially one Toxic Womb State, especially the one where I relate the dehydration, too much insulin, neurotransmitter disturbances of pregnant women before these children are born. I thank you for joining me, and please do join us again. Until then, may you be gracious, graceful, and generous in your spirit. Thank you. Thank you so much.